I hope you enjoyed that. Swanny, did that bring back any memories?
None whatsoever, to be honest. I assume you're going on about the Bruce Forsyth large chin that I've got, but I wish you'd run that by me first, because I find that very offensive, Yoza, to be honest. So bad start.
Well, I thought it would bring back memories of of your life on Strictly.
No, because Bruce, bless him, wasn't doing Strictly when I was on there. Didn't bring back memories at all. No, sorry.
Oh,
those days are a distant past.
Okay. Well, anyway, we're going to talk about that. Thank you very much for joining us. Graeme Swann is in the house, everybody. There's a proper round of applause for you. Thank you very much. And Simon's here as well. Simon, you're here, aren't you?
I am. Great to have everyone with us. Great to have you with us as well, Swanny. Remember, you can ask questions in the chat box, which you can illuminate on your right-hand side. We'll try and get as many people asking questions this evening as possible, and we'll ask your questions as well. Of course, you can interact with everybody else by putting your messages in the chat box.
So the format of tonight, as Simon said, is questions in the chat box. We also got some that you entered earlier on WhatsApp as well. Please join the WhatsApp group if you haven't already, because there's lots of interesting engagement on that. Actually, it's been quite intriguing listening to some of your views, some of your tales, and so on. Now, tonight, one of the reasons for doing this is a little bit like with Alistair Cook before, was it's 10 years since the Ashes triumph of 2010-11, which both Alistair and, of course, you, Swanny, were a hugely integral and influential part of. So we're going to kind of do a little recap of that tonight. And actually, it's uncanny, isn't it? Because today, it was the 3rd of December 2010 was the day where the Adelaide Test began. And we're going to watch a little bit of that in a minute. But what are your memories of that series? Serious question.
I've got magnificent memories of that series, mainly because we won, but especially of that day, of today in Adelaide, the first over, that surely it was written in the stars that we were winning those Ashes when Jonathan Trott, scored a direct hit from square leg to run out Simon Katic in the first over. Jonathan Trott, of all people, he's never run out anybody before or since. And yet he did it after we lost the toss and had to bowl at Adelaide on a flat one.
Well, actually, that is a great segue into this. I'm just going to pull it up, actually.
What's it like, Swanny, when you start a Test match and it is a belting hot day, it's Adelaide, it feels flat, and it's a toss you want to win, and you're in the field. What is it like as a fielding side? What goes through your mind, after the skipper comes in and says, "Oh no, we've lost the toss. We're in the field today."
Well, if I'm perfectly honest, the first 5 or 6 seconds when the captain comes in, you question his parentage, you question whether he's fit for the duty, whether he should be your friend at all. In Andrew Strauss's case, I was just thinking, what's the point of having a skipper? Because he doesn't do anything in the middle if he can't go out and win a toss, for goodness sake. Because the whole thing about Adelaide is you win the toss, you bat first, you get a monster score, and you win the Test match. And there's no two ways about it. But on that occasion, I don't know. It wasn't all doom and gloom in the changing room. I think we were still on a high from having scored 517 for one or whatever it was.
It was a glorious day, wasn't it? I mean, so okay, let's play these 3 wickets, and you can talk us through them if you like.
We dog out. Ideal players.
Looks like he's open the bowling, no great surprise there. Trot was quick to move, late to respond. It was a direct hit. He had one stop to aim at, and bang! Tonning's on strike. Here's Anderson. Oh, he's got him! He's got him at second slip. Oh, that's a good catch.
That was.
Well, they say run out cause collapses. This Ricky Tonic first up. Jimmy Anderson gets it right in the right area. Makes the captain play.
Good catch.
Good catch from Graeme Swann. Moved well to it.
Well, hands like buckets, man, I tell you.
Second, that's a great catch. 2 in a row for the Poms. Edge straight to Graeme Swann.
I seem to remember it being a lot smoother in real life, not quite so jerky, but I mean, considering there was one frame in 6, I think I did really well to catch both of them.
Looks all right on my screen.
Doesn't he look nice and safe as well? I always thought that the catching of the England side could be the difference.
And there you are. Look, the celebrations came later, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what an extraordinary, that was an extraordinary morning, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was, because that wicket was a featherbed, an absolute featherbed. I think we got one more wicket before lunch. And then I think they put up a bit of a rear guard. Michael Hussey batted for quite a long time throughout the day. We had to work quite hard. I think I nicked him off and then got Ryan Harris out at LBW, clearly hit it. And we appealed, and then he was given out, and then he sort of went, no, I hit that. And we were like, all right. And so we watched the replay, and it was a clear edge, and then for some reason DRS missed it, and so he was given out anyway. And he's actually a really nice bloke, Ryan Harris, so we genuinely felt quite sorry for him. But then you quickly forget about that and get on with the game. But the beauty with that match is Doug Bollinger played in that game, Doug the Rug. And yeah. I'd never played against Doug before in more than a 40-over game. What I didn't realise is some left-armers, when they bowl, are very light-footed, some barely touch the surface. Mitchell Johnson, he might as well have not wore spikes. He didn't ever create rough whatsoever. Doug Bollinger created an omelette outside off stump, bigger than a dustbin lid. I swear to God, he is the heaviest man on his feet. He must have worn the longest spikes. So when I bowled in the second innings, I had the biggest rough outside off stump to bowl into. It was an absolute treat. So to this day, Doug, thank you very much. You basically gave me a 5 for Adelaide. Good man.
I suppose it's actually, it's an interesting point because it is almost a lesson in if you've got a demon off spinner in the opposition, don't have a left armer who makes a big hole. Actually, I remember from Calcutta 93 when England picked 4 seamers and India picked 3 spinners, and one of the England seamers was Paul Taylor, the left armer from Northants. You'd have known him, wouldn't you? And of course, he just created a massive hole for, I think it was Rajesh Chauhan from India, and he bowled England out. The Osprey who chucked it, yeah. So, I mean, I suppose you can't sort of choose your players by what the opposition have in a way like that, or not choose them. But I guess it has to be something. I mean, I suppose in a way, Sam Curran, Dom Bess, could work in tandem together. Or maybe the trouble is Sam Curran's feet are too small to make a big hole.
Yeah. 2005, one of the reasons I signed for Nottinghamshire was that Ryan Sidebottom played there. And I knew that Ryan Sidebottom was a brilliant bowler, so he'd get most of the top order out. And also, he was, let's say, he's got the good back end on him. He'd win the national, that lad. He'd be good on the second lap. Strong rear quarters. So he's going to create rough. And one of the reasons, and I mean, if a bowler's thinking like that, there's no reason why coaches and what are they called? Selectors? Are they still called selectors these days? Or are they giving themselves a Ponzi name now?
Analysts.
They're probably like inclusion experts or something these days. I don't know.
Simon?
Well, there was a question on the chat box. Actually, we saw you doing the sprinkler there at the end. Whose idea was the sprinkler? Where did that come from? The sprinkler dance. You can do it much better than I can. But where did it come from?
It was. The truth behind that is, before the Ashes started, we had a 3-match series, if you like. We treated it as a mini Ashes series, where we played 11 aside rather than like 15 aside nonsense that they'd done before. And we played in Perth, where we beat Western Australia. We played in Adelaide against South Australia, and it was during the Adelaide game on the last day. It rained really heavily, but the night before we'd seen the forecast for heavy rain, and seeing as it wasn't a test match, We weren't that professional in our preparations, and the whole squad went out for a meal that extended into the evening. For some people longer than others. And so when we woke up in the morning, it's cracking flags. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, what have we done? What have we done? We've got a bowl all day in this." And we went out. Stuart Broad had bowled 2 balls of this game, and out of nowhere, this massive black cloud came and just banged it down. The game was off before we even got off the field. It was hilarious. I've never seen 11 happier human beings in my life that we weren't going to have to field because everyone had hangovers. And we all ran in the change room, and there was a team stereo, and someone put it on. And I always remember Paul Collingwood. And then it was going around the room, people were doing different dance moves. And Collie said, "Oh, lads, do you remember at 4 a.m. last night in that nightclub, that lass got up and was doing that sprinkler?" And as he said that, Andy Flower just walked up behind him and said, "What time was that?" So yeah, backtrack. "Oh no, I mean in the restaurant, we were watching it on the telly." And it was a hilarious moment. And I had an internet diary, and I did it that day, and I said, "Let's all have a sprinkler," and got all the team to do it, and it just grew from there. And we ended up
there's a big myth about that tour then, because I mean it was supposed to be, the best prepared England team before a first test, at the Gabba that England had ever had, and everyone was right on it, and yet you're out to 4 a.m, preparing for a test series against Australia.
Give headlines, Simon, man. You never changed, do you? No, it was one of those.
You're retired now. You've retired.
It was the last day of like the warm-up games, and we'd already won it, so we'd won that little series. There was no way of winning this game. It was just going to be 90 overs of hard graft for no gain, basically. So the fact that it was rained off just led everyone to be very, very happy. But the best prepared teams are also the best prepared mentally, and you could argue that the fact that we could all enjoy each other's company at that point meant that we were in a much better position than 4 years later when we couldn't stand each other.
I had Sorry, you go, Simon.
I was going to say, you also had the team building trip to Germany, which Cookie was talking about on Monday, which I know you enjoyed so much, didn't you?
I bet Cookie was talking about it because he managed to get out of it. He missed the first 3 days.
Did he? Really?
His brother's wedding or something like that. And then he came out and just rocked out of Reg Dixon's car with a Big Mac and fries falling out by his feet. All being tense in the middle of the fields. I was next to Mark Borden, the psychologist, who came within this much of losing his entire brain to my shoe because he snored that heavily. It's horrific. And the funny thing was, we went there directly after the PCA end of season bash, so we were all half cut in our tuxedos meeting at the airport. I was convinced when we got on this airplane to Munich that it was October. I thought we were going for Oktoberfest for the beer festival.
The beer fest.
I remember thinking Andy Flower is a legend. He's a proper Zimbabwean. He's going to bond us all over the Bavarian beer festival, but it wasn't quite.
You probably never saw a beer at all. I mean, I had the task of writing this with Straussy afterwards, and a whole chapter about Bavaria. And the abiding memory I have of his description of it was those bricks that you had to hold. And actually, I just read the paragraph. You had to hold them for 3 hours, 2 bricks, walking through the forest, doing press ups and sit ups and stuff. I mean, that must have been horrendous.
Well, I always remember one thing. So they were all like Australian Special Forces guys, and you couldn't swear. You had to call them by Mr. whatever, Mr. Arsehole and Mr. whatever. And I just remember, like, in the middle of the night, 3:30 in the morning or whatever, or it seemed 3:30, they suddenly came in, right, you got 2 minutes to get out and bring your bricks. So you had to get out, like, put your boots on, and you're in the middle of a forest. I mean, you're expecting sort of guerrilla warfare to be going on, and we've got these bricks, and we all have to go and stand with our arms out with these bricks, and it's pitch black, so walking around with the torch, and I'm more than happy to admit that I was on the end, and so everyone's going, ah, screaming. I was just, as soon as the light was off me, I just put my arms down and go, ah! I just remember thinking, this is, I'm all for team bonding and stuff, but and Straussy is a big believer in like shared hardship, but that was bollocks. 3 in the morning, the cold, being shouted at. And on the last morning, we'd gone. One thing I really enjoyed, actually, there was a lot of orienteering and stuff in it. I'm freakishly good at orienteering. I've got a very good memory, and I'm very good at map reading. So I kind of enjoyed that on a weird aside. But it wasn't a very pleasant experience for a lot of people. Making a raft or making a stretcher to carry one of your team when one of our team decided he was injured, so he couldn't do it, happened to be the heaviest person in our group. And he was also South African. And we had to carry him back and forth about 5 times. That grated on everyone a little bit.
Did it make any difference whatsoever, do you think? I mean, when you look back on it now, is it absolutely not complete and utter nonsense, or did it draw you together as a squad?
Well, I'll tell you this, and this is my firmly held opinion. It did do us some good because we won, and so.
That Swanny's frozen. It seems like he is frozen a little bit there. Right. Amazing. Sort of recount. Shall we? We can just actually. I've got a little bit of the sprinkler here. We can just have a look at for a second. I think he'll probably reconnect. Hopefully. There's. I just actually found a video of the sprinkler, and this is the Barmy Army sort of cheering alongside it. But what I find quite funny is watching Monty here. He comes into shot. They're doing the sprinkler here. Have a look at Monty. His sprinkler is slightly a bit strange. It's a little bit half-hearted, isn't it? We'll have a look at that again. He's a bit all over the place, Monty, there, isn't he? But some of you can see Collingwood. Collingwood is definitely the ringleader, because if we start at the beginning, people say, where did that come from? Look, Collingwood's organising it here at the front and then gets it all going with Swanny. Cookie's sort of playing his part there as well. So I'll play that to Swanny again when he reconnects. Is he back?
I'm not. I don't think he is yet. I mean, that was an amazing occasion. That Sydney Test match. I think that I do remember the sprinkler dance. I think the thing that really sticks in my memory most, and actually it probably fired him up for what was to come later, was on the 4th evening when there were thousands of England supporters there, and when Mitchell Johnson came out to bat. Australia struggling in their second innings. They were heading for defeat. And 20,000 people doing the Mitchell Johnson song at one end of the Sydney Cricket Ground, the far end from the pavilion. That he bowls to the left, he bowls to the right, etc., etc. And I just thought to be a home player going out to that, to have the England fans seeing that and just basically sort of undermining you. And then of course he walks in, first ball he's cleaned up by Chris Tremblett, and he has to walk all the way back with the England supporters singing that. And I sometimes wonder, he's a lovely bloke, Mitchell Johnson, actually. He worked with us on Test Match Special during the last series. And it's amazing actually how all these Australian fast bowlers, they seem so terrifying, when they're out there on the field. But, Glenn McGrath and Mitchell Johnson, they are just so delightful to be around. And you actually sort of sense his fragility as well. You could understand how that incident really got to him as a person, really hard to deal with. And then of course whether it inspired him in 4 years later, or 2 years later, I should say, or whether he just, everything aligned correctly for him. It was one of those series when he was fit and, the first spell worked, and, he was able to terrify England's batting line. I think there were a few who were scared. Jack Leach, didn't he? He said the other week that he did feel scared after being hit by Morny Morkel. Batsmen don't admit to being scared, but there's that sense of danger, not just in the back of your mind, but right at the front of your mind as well.
So this little bit here, I'm going to play you now, is we just watched it once, but you can talk us through it. It's the 3 wickets that you took against Australia in 2009 at the Oval.
Yeah.
And that's not it, is it? Yeah, it is. That's it. Right, just coming up. And I was just saying that it's a good example of why he was so effective, because you get a wicket with a ball here to catch it, which turns square, and then 2 wickets with balls which don't turn. Now, tell us whether these were deliberate non-turners or not.
Where's this? Is this at the Oval?
So that's Katic.
As an arm ball, first ball. No, that's it. That's not the Oval. That's the Adelaide. Let's have a look. Oh, it's a good ball. Little tickle on that. He was injured. He wasn't moving very well, so I'll take that. He's a very good player, Cato.
So actually, I've called this test wrong then. So this is the same test that you won.
Yeah, this is for 5 wickets.
Yeah.
So that footmark outside off stump from Doug Bollinger. That looks like it's not on. That was because the balls before it was square. He tried to sweep one, and it wasn't in control, and so he decided to play it normally. And he was just he was a player who, before the review came in, he'd have averaged 70 cricket. But that was. But I heard you just say Strauss is very good and Pryor was very good with the review system. They were only good because of me, Yozza, and I guarantee that. If I said it's definitely out, it was out.
I reckon that's out. It's straight.
I don't think it's actually happening. No. Matty Pryor was good as well.
I mean, it was sort of. We'll just see this LBW again. That's classic dismissal, that actually. And I suppose there's a couple of things to say about that. One is that batsmen's technique have probably changed a bit since then, so they get their pad in the way less, and they're playing the ball with the bat. And the other thing, I suppose, is that it was early days of the DRS, and there's no doubt that you made very good use of it.
Yeah, well,
is that true?
I'd say that techniques haven't changed. From what I watch now, techniques haven't changed that much. It's just that off spinners don't bowl straight enough. The England spinners certainly don't bowl properly to left-arm batsmen, because they bowl to try and get outside edges, so the ball's missing off stump a lot of the time. It's a very simple thing that could be sorted out if they spoke to the right people, but they don't do that. But no, I just bowl to hit the stumps all the time, and techniques haven't changed. Trust me, they're not. You see a good left-arm spinner bowling now, right-handed batsmen still get hit on the pad a lot, and still get. And if they're playing down the line, the outside edge comes in. It was a massive weapon for me, because before that, I've seen footage of Dan Vettori bowling against England years ago in Christchurch, and Andrew Caddick was out 6 balls in a row, plumb LBW, just going forward, and they weren't even appealing. Because such was the game in those days. If you're on the front foot, it didn't matter. Back pad. So yeah, I think times have changed, but techniques haven't. Trust me, techniques haven't.
And you mentioned about off-spin bowling. You've got a ball there, haven't you? So, I mean, I often used to talk to you about this, and you sort of tried to explain it, the ability you have to make the ball some turn and some look as if they're going to turn, but because of a slightly different grip, they tend to just hit the seam and go straight on. Can you demonstrate that?
Yeah, I had a cricket ball here somewhere.
Lost it now.
I'll find it again. Who took it? Hang on, wait there. From my right, so this ball, this is off my shelf. This one is
Sri Lanka.
I write where I've got them from and why I've stolen them at the end of a game. So this one is Sri Lanka at Cardiff. I got 4 for 16 off 7 when we bowled them out for about 40 and nicked the ball at the end. So basically the off spinner. So English off spinners are supposed to hold it like this between those 2 knuckles. That is absolute codswallop. If it doesn't work, you'll never be a decent test bowler if you do that. You should hold it between the first knuckle there and then this back one. That's what I always did, and really flick it. That's where you get a lot of revolutions. And so when you're bowling a normal off feet, you go over the top, and when you're bowling one you want to go straight on, right at the last minute, you go underneath. And so the ball will literally go down. I used to call it a flying saucer ball. and it'll wobble on the way down, sometimes hit the seam and turn. Most of the time, go straight on. And it was a very powerful weapon to left-handed batsmen, especially Marcus North.
How easy is it to pick that up as a batsman? That you obviously, that sleight of hand right at the last second. I mean, you must have faced lots of spin bowlers in your time, and you knew what you were trying to do. So presumably you were thinking about what they were trying to do. How easy or difficult is it as a batsman to pick up that sleight of hand at the last second?
Seemingly it's quite hard. I got taught that by Ashley Mallet, Australian coach. No one in England had ever taught me that. No one in England who I spoke to afterwards knew about that ball. He called it a square spinner. Said it would be really useful when you're playing Australia, and he was dead right. No one I've seen since, I haven't seen any young lads who try and bowl it who understand how to bowl it. It's a very simple ball to bowl once you're used to it, if your action suits it. So for me, my action suited the ball, found it very simple to bowl. And it is quite seemingly very hard to pick. I knew it was hard to pick because Mike Hussey, when he was at Northampton, when I used to in the nets, he used to come out saying, "Mate, there's that one ball you bowl. I always think it's an arm ball, but sometimes it turns. How are you doing it?" And so I didn't tell him. I made something up and pretended it was all fluke because I thought I might play against him in the Ashes one day.
Phil Vasey says, just to clarify this, he says, does the spin come off the first or the second finger?
Has he sneezed and gone away again?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, we can hear you, Swanny, but you've frozen. I don't know whether you're able to, if you can hear us, keep talking. I don't know.
Swanny's okay. He's in the house. He's moving.
Right. So what I heard there, does the spin come off the finger? Yes, absolutely. So
the first or second finger, says Phil. Does it come off the first or second finger?
Spinners will get a callus on that finger there. That's because they're bowling the English way of spin, which is to have that ball and it's like open the door. That you'll never get a great deal of revolution. You'll never get a lot of drift or spin bowling like that. But if you turn that seam, so instead of the first knuckle, it goes into the second knuckle, and it hurts. And so you basically squeeze it out as hard as you can, so the ball goes over the top of that knuckle. So I never got a callus on this finger, but I used to get an enormous hole, a chunk, come out of that finger there, especially when it was wet. An English ball, when the seam is wet, will rip your fingers to shreds.
I think you did you not have glue? Did you not sometimes have to glue your? Am I imagining that you sometimes have to sort of glue your knuckles all sort of together to?
I tried once, and I'll tell you that the game. It was another Test match at Cardiff. It was my Ashes debut when I used glue. For the first time, I decided I'll use glue today. As we're 20 minutes before bowling my Ashes debut, I think I got none for 140, and I never went back to glue. It's basically all glue is. It puts a rubber-like. It's almost like a permanent plaster over your finger, but you lose all feeling in your hand. So you go to spin the ball and you can't actually feel the ball. And I bowled like a drain, and it's a good job I got some runs, else I probably wouldn't have played in the rest of the series.
Let's carry on that conversation, actually, because Scott Moody, as I mentioned to you actually before we started, is one of our members here, and he's a leg spin coach and former very good leg spinner, contemporary of Shane Warne, and he's interested in the technique of modern spinners. And he says, watching Don Best bowl last summer, he was continually releasing the ball from the left of vertical. So in other words, sort of 11 o'clock, which meant no drift, very little turn or a fake turn because of the angle, making it look as if it was spinning when it actually wasn't, and no arm ball.
So it's basically ball from there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But because he's not got a great deal of revolution, and he's not really, because he bowls a lot in straight lines, he goes around a little bit, but he pushes the ball. So rather than when you bowl, you should come right across your body like an away swing bowler. That's all off spinners should be able to bowl amazing away swing, because I've just dropped my ball into my pint, because it's coming across the body. If you watch them bowl, it's sort of bowling and pushing it there.
Actually,
so
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
It drifts in and just sort of carries on. So it is fake turn, if you like. It's not hard to rectify. Don could bowl proper off spin, I think. Don, because he gets 2 or 3 balls every now and again that he clicks and it goes perfectly. But it seems to be that's his mistake ball at the minute rather than his stock ball, because he's just not been coached, not been taught to bowl how you need to.
Well, Scott says if he maintained horizontal eyes, lowered his release point and changed his alignment, he could be a much better bowler. But have you been asked to work with him at all?
No, I have had a chat with him over Sky, not Skype, Sky Sports. That's the only time I've spoken to Don Bess, with Keezy, Ian Ward, me, and him on like a Zoom, on one of these on the Zoom call. That's the limit of my contact with England's off spinner at the minute.
That seems a bit of a shame.
Go into it. I don't know why. I probably missed the bus once too often on tour.
Here's something then, Swanny. Is it something that's quite easy, relatively easy? Talking about top level international sport here, but is it something that's relatively easy to sort out, or does it take would it take quite a long time to work on it?
It'd be very easy to sort out because it's not rewriting the script. He's got a decent action. He doesn't put, the reason he doesn't get that much spin on the ball is because where he released it from, he can't, because that face spin, it would just go miles down the leg side. If he just changes body angle and changes arm position, he could put all his body rotation into it, come across his body and spin it twice as hard as he does at the minute. It wouldn't be hard.
And Ashley Mallock taught you how to do that, but did you have to work out other things yourself, or were there people when you were growing up who said, look, do this, do that, this will work for you, that will work for you, or did you have to sort of work it out for yourself and experiment?
Yeah, a lot of people said do this, do that, that'll work, and I didn't listen to any of them because they were wrong. I fundamentally disagreed with how I was taught to bowl spin at a young age. I could spin it a lot more bowling how I wanted to, how I felt out of my hand. The reason me and Monty did so well against India 2012 was because I never listened to coaches growing up, and Monty never understood coaches growing up. We got very lucky to have 2 spinners at the same time for different reasons who were not coached by the English method. I'm convinced about that.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Let's go to your questions that you are going to ask on screen. So if Ian Wigston and Richard Shelley can get ready, I can see you, Ian. You're here already, Ian Wigston. So we'll unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. Are you ready to ask your question?
Yes, I am, Simon. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, good evening, Ian.
Swanny, great to have you with us. When you had your elbow injury, which eventually led to your retirement from the game, how much support did you feel you had from teammates and management beforehand? With hindsight, what would have been more helpful? We're asking that. We've had quite a lot of mental health conversations on this group over the last few weeks.
It's strange, really, because when I had my 3 eventual operations, they're all in America, all with the same bloke. The first one was just after the West Indies tour, where I just made my debut. I just made my 3rd test, sorry. The test that Monty should have played and then didn't, and I got my first 5. But my elbow went the night after getting 5 wickets. I struggled through that series and then flew off from Antigua to Minnesota. So England sent a physio to meet me there, and I spent a week with her and then had this operation. And then I didn't see anyone for 4 weeks because I was in a room in my own house with this metal contraption 24 hours a day going back and forth to sort of speed up the recovery, and went straight into pre-season. So I went straight to Nottinghamshire. So I got a lot of support there because I was with all my mates from Nottingham. The second time I had an operation was when I flew home from New Zealand. So I didn't play in the test series, and I watched, with this machine going back and forth, I watched Stephen Finn get 50 from my bedside table. And I was in constant text conversation with Jimmy because he was my best mate. And again, they sent a physio. So, I mean, I never felt let down by it all. The only thing that let me down was the 3rd operation I had. The surgeon basically said, look, you've got osteophytes that are now in the nerve. That's why you can't feel your fingers anymore. I can try and get them out, but I'll give you 10% chance of retaining use of your hand. So that was kind of a letdown. But but once you're out of it, I mean, once I had to finish, that's it. You drop like a stone, basically. I mean, mental health, even though they talked about it a lot, they paid lip service to it. You only had to see Jonathan Trott, who arguably had a breakdown before the tour even took place. When we got over there, we had 15 coaches. The psychologist came out for a week at the start of the tour and left before the first test match. I mean, how can you possibly think test cricket that is 95% in the head?
Yeah.
It's 10 full-time coaches and the psychologist to be there for 6 days to make sure everyone's pillows are soft enough, basically, and then he goes home. So no, they still don't get it right, because they haven't worked out that within England, I'm convinced about this, it's not about the weaknesses in your head that you should have a psychologist for. It's about making everyone stronger. Yeah. And Test cricket is so much easier than a lot of other games you play, because so many other people mentally they create this monster and they're playing a different game altogether. The good psychologist is there just keeping everyone on an even keel and calming people and making them believe that they're good enough. England will be number one forevermore if they got the right people in charge.
And you work in that field a bit, Ian, don't you? Is that right? Or you've written something about it anyway? Ian.
Yeah, I'm writing a book on coaching and mentoring in education, which will be out next year.
And the mental health aspect is quite a sort of major part of it, is it, or a significant part of it?
Yeah, we have people we call drama therapists that we use in some of our work, which helps people to envisage different aspects of leadership, in particular.
Okay, well, good luck with that, and we'll follow that development. So, Richard Shelley, you've got a sort of follow-up question, really. If you remember what it is, Richard, are you there? Maybe he's not.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I had trouble getting unmuted. Evening, everyone. So the follow-up question, Graeme, is about your approach as a bowler between the first and second innings. Whereas the first innings, you always seem to be got to keep it tight to rotate the quicks from the other end. So in the second innings, perhaps being a bit more aggressive, a bit more positive in trying to take wickets and win the match. I wonder how you approach that different mindset.
Well, I used to very, very much in the head my whole game. So I used to try and take the pressure off myself at all times. So turning up to a day one of a test match, I would be thinking, there's no pressure on me whatsoever. I've not got to open the bowling. If we're batting, I'm number 8. That's fine. I can sit my feet up for 2 hours at least. If we're bowling, I've got to bowl what? An over before lunch, because we're English, and spinner always has one over before lunch, even though it never gets a wicket. I've got to bowl 6 overs before tea, and then possibly 12 till the new ball, maybe 4. So maybe 20 overs in the whole day. There's no pressure on me whatsoever. I'll pick up 1 or 2 wickets because, I'm bowling that many overs. And if I go for 50 runs, I've done my job. So straight away, I was just convincing myself that I had the easiest job in the world. And that made it a lot easier for me. Rather than thinking, oh my God, I'm the only spinner, I can't let the seamers down, I've got to keep trying the ball. And I'd try and go about and try and have a body language that was as blasé, laissez-faire as I could. Even if in my head I was thinking, Christ, this wicket's good, or we've got our work cut out. And then in the second innings, I would do the exact opposite. I would say, the wicket is doing everything for me now. So the ball's turning, there's footholes. The pressure's supposed to be on me to win the game. Brilliant. I love that. I want to be man of the match. So bring it on. That's all I want. I want to be the man. I want to be famous. I want to take more wickets than Jimmy Anderson. I'm much better looking than him, so I want more wickets than him as well. Stuff like that. Even though it's complete cod shit, I would convince myself that this was going to happen. And that took, again, I found that took the pressure off me all the time.
Just following that then, Graeme, did you find playing county cricket difficult because of the lack of atmosphere and that bigger pressure situation?
I did. Well, I never found county cricket difficult until I came back. After we won the Ashes in Sydney in 2010, and by this point, once I was a fully contracted England player, I was only playing 4 or 5 county games a year, more or less at the start of the season when I'd be playing for my batting anyway. But the first time I put whites on again after Sydney, after that 25,000 Englishmen, singing, cheering, and that famous victory, it was at Hove, in late April or early April, it seemed. And at one point, me and Mark Elam were at slip, and we looked around the ground, and there were two people watching. One of them had a rug on, and I'm sure the one was dead. I'm sure the other one had died of frostbite. Even the seagulls weren't coming out. It was cold. And in the TV cameras there as well, you could hear Bob Willis commentating in the commentary box behind a window. It was that dead. And it was honestly, it was the worst game of cricket I've ever played in my life. I seriously thought, is it possible to retire from county cricket but carry on playing for England? Because I would have done it on the spot. So that was all a mental thing. That took a lot of sitting down, long, hard looks in the mirror saying, come on, get over yourself. This is your bread and butter. You need to get back up. But it is difficult.
Yeah. Was Bob saying nice things about you?
Well, but I love Bob, honestly, because a lot of people didn't realise that Bob is was one of the funniest blokes going.
Yeah.
And he played the miserable old git on Sky brilliantly.
Mm.
And I always remember I went in as night watchman in that game. And I was on naught. I blocked out 2 balls. That was the end. And the next morning they interviewed me before we went out to bat. And I said to him, Bob, strap yourself in. You're about to see my first double 100 in county cricket. And I walked out and got caught cover for first ball of the day. And I just remember Bob, as I was walking off, I looked up at the box at the corner of my eye, and he was obviously being all serious. And then he put the mic down and just gave me a big double thumbs up. Hey, it was a good ball. Sometimes you just get a good one, all right?
Well, especially first up.
Yeah, caught extra cover, laced it.
Alex Gaywood, if you're not ready, we can go to Will Gould. But if Alex Gaywood is ready, you had a good question about spin and the kind of satisfaction of the game. Alex, are you on mute or unmuted?
Come on, Nort.
Got him. Anyway, so evening, Graeme, evening, Simon, evening, Simon.
Hi.
So my question is, as a spinner, did you get more satisfaction when you took a wicket with just a one-off jaffer that came out of nowhere? Or was it more enjoyable when over the course of several overs you plotted and built up the pressure until the batsman just effectively gave his wicket away to you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a batsman effectively gave it away, because what I would say is I've worked out for 7 wickets. I have dragged that wicket from him. But yeah, without a doubt, the reason I love the longer form of the game, the reason I will never have the affinity in my heart for T20 or one-day cricket that I do for Test cricket is exactly for that reason. You can bowl an absolute jaffer in a one-day game and get a wicket, and the big replay goes, hey, brilliant. But give me 2 or 3 hours of being in a battle with someone and of working on a plan slowly, like a long game of chess, when it actually works and it comes off and a plan you've been going for. And it was normally me and Mushy. Mushy was my spin coach for England. And we'd plot and we'd think, how are we going to get this guy out? I just remember getting Virendra Sehwag bowled through the gate in Calcutta. And we'd said at the start of the day, how many times will we let him hit you for 4 or let him get away with it before we dare to dream that we'll get one through the gate? And I'd said 6 times, 6 extra cover drives. And he said, no, Mr. Swanny, 5 times. And he'd hit me for 5. And we were counting them. No one else in the world knew that this little game was going on, but me and Mushy. And the first ball after lunch, I bowled him through the gate, going for a 6-1. And I just remember turning around. Honestly, if I could have wrapped up all the wickets I ever took, that one felt more special at that particular moment because it was something we'd worked on so hard. So absolutely. The odd jaffer, great. Then more luck than judgment, but working on one, and eventually when it pays dividends is a wonderful feeling.
Yep. So did you come on first time and think, 4 overs time, that's when I'm going to get him? And how often could you kind of really say that's when it's going to happen?
Yeah, well, it was normally, I'd always try and get a wicket immediately because a lot of bowlers didn't try to do that.
And you often did, actually. You often did get an early wicket, didn't you, in your first over or 2?
Yes, and I got asked this a lot, and I promise the reason I did was because I tried to. Think about all the bowlers I knew. Jimmy is the only other one who I knew from ball 1, back himself. I know where the ball's going. I've had enough practice. I don't need an over through to the keeper's gloves. as a spinner, when you're growing up, a lot of people say, "Oh, see how the first one goes, and then we'll bring in silly point, we'll bring in short leg, settle into a rhythm, and then try and get a wicket." I used to think, look, I'm a finger spinner. As Jimmy used to put it, I'm a club spinner who's got lucky. I don't have a doosra because I bowl with a straight arm. I don't chuck it, so I can't bowl the other one. So I used to think 10, 15 balls when I'm at my most dangerous against these blokes, against any batsman, the first 10, 15 balls until they work out that there is no super mystery. And so I'm going to try and get them out from ball one. I'm not going to waste any balls. And I'd visualise getting them out. And so more often than not, I would get a wicket in my first over because batsmen are expecting you to just settle into a rhythm and bowl, regulation balls with no spin on them to get warm. And I just thought, no, I'm not doing that. Bollocks.
So in actual fact, you didn't mind going for runs in your first over or two then, presumably?
Not really, but I always thought if you're really visualising taking wickets, you don't go for runs because you don't, as a spin bowler, there's all this, like if you try too hard, whatever, there's two types of bowling for me. There's one, trying to get the bloke out. So I always say in a close game of cricket, a lot of league cricketers will get this, league cricket bowlers, when you're desperately trying to take 5 wickets off the last 10 overs to win a game, as a bowler, you don't bowl a single bad ball. All you're focusing on is getting them out, how you're going to drag them out, what you're going to do. And the ball takes care of itself because you're not thinking about your action or any technique or whatever. If you do think of technique and right, is my arm straight? Is it there? Am I in rhythm? You never get anyone out. The ball more than often doesn't go exactly where you want it to. So I'd always say, no, I refuse to think like that. I'm just going to visualize getting them out and try and get them out from the word go. Trust me, it works.
Okay, Will's on screen.
Will Gould.
Hi, Simon. Hi, Graeme.
Hi, Will.
Hi, everyone. Graeme, my question to you is, obviously for a large part is, oh no. Are we back?
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, all good. Sorry. You in Strictly for after you retired, and what was your best and worst dance in the competition? Is my first question, and my second one is to you. You've been retired now for quite some time now, and you've been. I just wanted to know how you've adapted going from being a player to being a pundit and working on Test Match Special, because I've been up to the TMS box on a number of occasions, and I know one member of the TMS crew actually, funny enough, and so I was just wondering how you've adapted, and do you miss the game at all?
Well, the second part first, yeah. Playing the game, it will never be replaced for me. That's probably the zenith of my life. I'm happy to admit it. It was my boyhood dream to play for England. It was actually to get Alan Border out to win the Ashes at Sydney. I didn't really do my maths in my head. I think he'd be 60 by the time I got there. But playing for England was the best thing. Working as a pundit, I found it very easy because I decided early doors I'd be very honest. So I wouldn't beat around the bush. If something was very blatant to be pointed out, I'd point it out. I lost friends. Alistair Cook didn't speak to me for 6 months, and he'll deny this because he's a lying little toad. But Simon Mann was sat with me in Bristol. Do you remember, Simon? Rained, and me and Michael Vaughan sat there, and I said, right, this is the reason why England are rubbish at one-day cricket. We're picking Alistair Cook, Ian Bell, Jonathan Trott, the wrong players completely. We're going to get Cook. He should walk away from the game. He's going to get sacked after the World Cup. And do you remember who I said should play for England? I said Alex Hales, Jason Roy, Owen Morgan, Ben Stokes. This is Josh Buttler. They're your one-day players. And me and Vaughan, he sat there, put the world to rights. Cookie didn't speak to me for 6 months because he thought I was doing enough. It was so obvious to me that was the way forward. But I'd never change that because Cookie's now tentatively getting in the TMS box as well. He's not doing that. He's been a nicest pie bloke let's just talk about how I was a chorister and then ugliest off driver in the world. But he'll get there one day. I mean, he's bland. Anderson and Cook are bland, but they're face fit, so they're okay.
The interesting thing about that day in Bristol, of course, is what was the other factor about that day in Bristol? Can you remember? I won't dwell too long on it, but it rained all day.
Yeah.
It rained all day, so no one in the press corps had anything to write about. So everyone was listening to you talking about Alistair Cook, as a former teammate, shouldn't play in the World Cup, and so it actually became a much bigger story than perhaps it might have done if there'd been a full day's play and it'd been nice and sunny.
So rule number one is, to make these outrageous comments when it's not raining and all the journalists aren't listening.
Yeah, but my whole point was perfectly valid. Do you remember what I said? Was that he got out of jail with his Test cricket because he's a brilliant Test player, and the one-day game was so obvious that England was still picking people. I mean, and my argument still then was I'd just played in an England team 2 years before in a World Cup semi-final or quarter-final in Sri Lanka where we got 234, and on the board, on our whiteboard, that said, after this many overs, if we've lost it, this is what the score will be. We will win 84% of our games with 234. We lost in 28 overs. They took the piss out of us to the point where I was embarrassed. And yet the England management just sort of nodded, went, well, we'll stick to the numbers. The numbers will win this game. And I just thought, this is wrong. But thank God they moved away from that. And I've got to say, one person who doesn't get anywhere near the credit is actually Straussy.
Straussy, yeah.
The one who basically said, yes, move aside coaches, and just gave it to Owen Morgan. Said, right, Morgs, what do we do? Go and tap into Baz McCullum. And you wouldn't expect Straussy to do that, because Straussy, you'd think he'd be a bit of a numbers man, a bit play line. But he realised that one-day cricket we were awful and just went, no. So well done, Straussy.
Well, yeah, I spoke to him today, actually. The reason why will become obvious shortly. I mean, he was definitely sort of the influencer in the revolution of English one-day cricket. Just before we leave the art of cricket and spin, Gareth Hadley says, has becoming being the England spinner now become like being the England Test wicketkeeper, i.e. you must be able to bat. So a Tufnell or a Panesar, if available today, and I suppose Jack Leach might fit that category a bit, wouldn't necessarily fit into a team. Do you agree?
No, I think probably that is what they think when they're picking a team. But what England failed to realise is that the spinner is a bona fide and very important part of being a number one team in the world. If you're going to win Test matches and get up and win that Test championship and win overseas, you can't treat your spinner as a luxury who you don't play in Test matches. Who, I've seen 2 or 3 games where Joe Root has been expected to, he'll do the overs for the spinner. It's bollocks. While we're thinking like that, we'll get destroyed in India and Sri Lanka.
Although actually Joe Root could be quite a good spinner. I mean, he's got the natural skill, but perhaps not the application.
Because Joe Root is a brilliant sort of part-time spinner who can bowling spin as a your first and foremost skill in the Test team is not a part-time job. It's not something you do when you're not batting just because you're fielding. English cricket has to move way ahead, way beyond that way of thinking if we're ever going to move forward either with spinners or batting against spinners. Because the very fact that you just said that, I'm not having to go at you, Joseph, but the very fact that that's still prevalent in people's minds is absolute odd shit.
Yeah, and I suppose the evidence is very clear with, you've got Shane Warne, Anil Kumble and Murali, who are the 3 easily the leading 3 spinners in the world, and none of them would really have great pretensions as a batsman, would they? Although they made their runs, but they were specialist bowlers, and that's what they're in the team for every game.
Being able to bat down the order means if you score a 30, you've done a brilliant job, or a 40, incredible job. 30 or 40 means nothing if you're not taking 20 wickets in a series. I mean, if you're a good enough bowler to get 5 or 9 wickets in the game, the 30 runs you got, 40 runs you get mean nothing because you've completely outweighed them. And so rather than, we do pick spinners who'll get 2 or 3 wickets in the match and then 30 odd runs and think that they're doing a good job. They're not. They're bit part players. We need to aim higher than that.
You talk very passionately, you always have done, about spin, Swanny. Do you feel, I sort of sensed earlier that you feel a bit miffed, actually, that you're not asked to be involved? I mean, you are England's second second most successful spinner of all time, and yet you're not asked to be involved and try to help spin bowling in this country.
Well, I am miffed, to be honest, because and you can ask Yoz, you can ask Strauss about this one day. After a couple of years of thinking, why the hell aren't they asking me? Because the second you finish playing Test cricket is the second you're most relevant, you're most valuable as a coach. If Jimmy Anderson finishes playing cricket and they make him do England women or Lancashire seconds or something like that to get his stripes, it would be the biggest crying shame in the world. And before anyone cries foul, I'm going to go at the England women team or Lancashire second team. You know my point. The second he finishes, he is fresh. He knows all the players. He knows the game currently. He's not had to take a few years off. He should go straight in as head coach or head bowling coach for England. Arguably, I should have been asked immediately to coach all the spinners because that was me. I was relevant. I knew the game. I knew everyone inside out. That's when you can impart everything. You don't get that from a few years out of it. You lose that straight away, and you become run of the mill. You become humdrum, which is a crying shame.
It's quite slightly ironic as well that we seem to employ spin coaches who are always overseas. You know, it's either in your case Mushy or Sack Lane as well.
Strauss's story. So after a couple of years of feeling properly miffed about it, Strauss phoned me up one day, and I was in the car with my wife Sarah, and he said, Swanny, let's talk about this off-spin coaching role then. I went, finally, Strauss, it's taken you long enough. And he went, yeah, how do you think Sack Lane Mushtaq could get on? Are you serious? He went, yes. I went, I think you do great. And then Sack Lane Mushtaq was made coach. Honestly, I just thought, I mean, I love Strauss to bits, and he wouldn't have realised what he was doing. He was genuinely just trying to see, because I think there was from there thinking that he doesn't want to anything to do with coaching, just wants to be in the commentary box, whatever. I've always wanted to impart something back. I don't want to get all these level 3 and 4 coaching badges to tick a box and tell me how to bowl off spin. That's absolute nonsense, because I've seen it and seen how they coach it. But I'd love to be able to help spinners.
Are you now too big a personality? Sorry to use a horrible word, to be able to do that. In other words, you've got a sort of quite an influence on the world outside the dressing room, and therefore, you know, they wouldn't sort of feel comfortable with you around.
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
If that's the case, then it's the biggest crying shame in the world, because to you, I'd say that is a BS excuse not to get someone involved. I think that dressed up is saying I'm not a yes man, I never have been, but I wasn't when I played. And one of the reasons I was as good as I was at what I did was because I refused to just play by the rules and
conform.
Well, not conform. I mean, I wasn't a troublemaker. I missed the bus a couple of times. I was young and I was an alcoholic. As an 18-year-old on tour, there's a lot of money in those days. But by the time I played, I was deadly serious about my art, deadly serious about my cricket. But I would never toe the party line. Like during a press conference, I wouldn't go and say, yes, but wouldn't be possible without my teammates. That's bollocks. No one wants to hear that. I'd go and have a laugh, and I'd ask Simon Mann how Bristol City got on this week, because he's a huge fan and stuff like that. I tried to enjoy it.
Well, actually, just one quick question to continue on that theme a little bit. You were in India, weren't you, doing the Select Dugout, which is the Star TV kind of digital coverage, which is in a sort of mock cricket sort of net almost, isn't it, with a dugout, and you got lots of tools there. I mean, did you find that quite stimulating in a way, because there's a sort of element of presentation, but an element of coaching as well?
Absolutely, and that's what it is. But it's also because it's in India, and they love the fact that, you know, I'm from England and I bowled spin and did well in India. That's their forte, but I did well. So you get more reverence over there. And there's no rules. You can say what you want. You don't have to worry about upsetting people and being politically correct. If you see something on the TV, you comment on it straight away. You get up and you show what you're talking about. And Brian Lara sat next to you, and Brett Lee sat next to you. I mean, it's just incredible. They've got it. They've nailed it on the head. That show wouldn't work. It would work in England. It'd be incredible.
I agree. Yeah.
People worried about who's this going to upset.
I think it's a great
So-
show. I think it's much better than the actual IPL coverage because they run the match in parallel, don't they? But then they dip into the conversation in the dugout, so called, a bit more often than they do on the commentary. It's good.
like, I mean, one thing that I always found when I first started playing first class cricket, I learnt more sat in the dressing room at Northamptonshire, like listening to the players while the game was going on, than any dressing room I'd ever been in my life. This is a higher plane. This is people, where they were talking about the night out or talking about the game or talking about technique. They were talking on a different level, and you quickly join them on that sort of higher state of consciousness, and your game improves because of that. That's what happens once you get in the England team as well, on the balcony, in the dressing room. And that's that select dugout. That's what it is. It's like being a fly on the wall, sat with some of the greatest minds who've ever played the game, and me.
Shall we, Simon? Is it time?
What a time for my
so.
internet.
No, it's not. No, not yet. You can't go yet. We've got to do the quiz first. So, shall we do the quiz, Simon?
Yeah. Does Graeme know about the quiz or not? Have we told him about it?
Maybe. I don't know. Do you know about the quiz, Swanny?
I'm pretty good on quizzes. I did win Mastermind.
Right. Well, this starts with a bit of music. And it's called How Well Do I Know Myself, or How Well Do You Know Yourself? Yes?
Okay.
And if you get the question right, you get a... He's got it! And if you get it wrong, you get a... Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
The leaderboard so far. Simon, do you want to talk him through the leaderboard?
Sophie Eccleston and Jack Leach, who came on together in the Virtual Cricket Club, are leading with 8 points. Alistair Cook managed 4 points on Monday. So he is last at the moment. And there was a lot of sledging at the questions, but we stood firm and we held our ground and we gave him 4 points out of 10. So that's the spread.
Yeah, the only bit he knew about was farming.
Oh, yeah, sheep. Did you ask me about running story or not?
What story?
I told you to ask him about running like Woody from Toy Story.
Yeah, actually, do you know, I forgot in the end, but we got some other good questions. So, right, Simon, do you want to start off? 10 questions. Right, off we go.
10 questions, Swanny. All sorts of different questions. Some about your career, some about 1 or 2 other things. Right, question number 1. Fairly straightforward, I think. You famously took 2 wickets in your first over of Test cricket. I'm sure you remember those 2. Who was your 3rd victim in Test cricket?
I will go for Virender Sehwag.
He's got it! Very good. Question 2. Who has the better wicket-taking strike rate, you or Nathan Lyon?
I'm going to be self-effacing and say Nathan Lyon. But I actually think it's probably me. I'm a much better bowler than he is.
Well, give us your answer. What is your answer? Who has got the better strike rate, you or Nathan Lyon? Nathan Lyon.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
I knew I was right.
No, it's no good now. It's no good saying that now. Swann 60.1, Lyon 62.4. So 1 out of 2.
Right, to be fair, he's a better bowler than me in Australia. But nowhere else in the world.
Question number 3, Swanny. Who was your last one-day international victim? So who did you get out in your last one-day international?
I reckon this was against New Zealand.
It's the wrong country.
I wouldn't have a clue then. I'm trying to think who my last one-day international was against. Oh, no, it's my 100th wicket was in New Zealand. I'll go for Shane Watson.
It was Tilly Karatni Dilshan at the Oval in 2013. I know you loved one-day international cricket so much, but you can't remember your last one-day international and your last one-day international wicket.
I can't even remember that game, to be honest. I
One out
remember
of
my
three.
first one.
You remember your first one? Well, that's no good. That wasn't the question. 1 out of 3. Did you dismiss question 4 more right-handers or more left-handers in your Test career?
More right-handers.
He's got it!
Very good. 133 right, 122 left. 2 out of 4.
But my average was
Much lower
distinctly
against
better.
left-handers, yeah.
And the reason you would have dismissed more right-handers is because there are more of them. But your
Correct.
success
He
rate
worked that
against-
out. He worked that out. He's not as stupid
Yeah.
as we think he is.
Right. Question number 5. Good luck with this one. Who was your first county championship victim? So go all those years back. Who was the first man you dismissed in the county championship match?
A guy called Nadeem Shahid stumped
He's got it!
Very good.
Very good.
Very good. Nadeem Shahid, correct. So what's that? 3 out of 5. Right. Question 6. Name one of 2 batsmen that you dismissed most in Test cricket.
Houghton Gambier, Chris Rogers.
He's got it!
Double hander. I'm not giving you an extra point for that. 4 out of 6.
I just heard scratching at the door. It was my dog again. Lee Robson likes a quiz. I'm back.
7. So that you took, but you dismissed both of them. Do you know how many times you dismissed both of them?
6?
7, actually.
7.
Yep.
Right. Question number 7. Now, a lot of people might forget that you captained England
Yes.
3 times in T20s, winning 2 of them. Who were the opposition captains?
Oh, well, against India, it would have been MS Dhoni. And against the West Indies, Darren Sammy.
Very good. Very good. What's
Well,
that? 5 out of 7.
I should rate. The game we lost at the Oval, we bowled 20 overs. They only got 118 or something. And those stupid batsmen let me down.
Right. Question 8.
100%. Sorry, Jos.
Question 8, 5 out of 7. What was your highest score on Strictly, and what was the dance?
Oh, God. My highest score would have been 31 points for the musical theatre dance.
What do you think, Simon?
No, I don't think so.
Or
No?
32
We don't give him that?
for the
What?
tango.
Well, which is it?
2 for the tango.
No.
You took me out of it. haven't you?
32 for the theatre and jazz.
Oh, man. It must have been
Close,
31.
but incorrect. 5 out of 8. Simon.
Okay, here we go. Question number 9. I didn't set this question. What did your captain, Andrew Strauss, find most annoying about you?
About me. I assume this is going straight from Andrew Strauss. I don't know what he would have found the most annoying, whether it be my non-stop talking or my incredible joke telling. But he did once call me a buffoon on the field because, and my petulance, how petulant I got.
I think we're going to give you that because you actually mentioned the word in that answer.
Buffoon.
He said your general buffoonery.
He's got it!
So you get that right. 6 out of 9. Very
I'll
good.
tell you a quick story. Played in Johannesburg and I was bowling at Mark Boucher. And honestly, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but I was brilliant at DRSing and knowing when it was going to get given or whatever. I had a sixth sense and I very rarely got it wrong. And Mark Boucher, who was a bit of a thorn in our side, I got him LB, just went across and he played him out and it just hit him. But Matty Pryor had gone too far down the leg side. So he went, no, it's missing leg. And I said, Strauss, short mid wicket. I went, Straussy, that's out. I'm telling you, it's hit him in line, it's hit leg stump, it's out. He goes, no, Graeme, we're going on what Matty said. I went, but I'm not bowling another ball until you call for DRS because that is out. And honestly, I crossed my arms, stamped my foot, and he looked at me and just went, I'll take the expletives back. He goes, you are a bloody buffoon, aren't you? Get on and bloody bowl. So I felt really ashamed about how stroppy I'd been. Bowled the next ball, and then the big screen showed the replay, and it would have been out as well. I was like, "See, I told you, buffoon."
6 out of 9. Right, last question. So this, if you get this right, then you go up to sort of high up the table. But if you don't,
Yes.
then you're sort of, mid to low, really. So the last question is, who has more Twitter followers, you or Jimmy?
Oh, well, when we first started, it was all about a competition who'd have the most at the end of the Ashes, and he'd beaten me. I don't know how he's gone since then, because he doesn't really tweet anything because he's dull as dishwater. But he's got the big Indian follow, and he changed his agent as well. So Jimmy will have more than me.
A very modest but
He's got it!
correct answer. 921,000.
Yeah.
Swann. Jimmy Anderson, 1 million.
Yeah. So Jimmy changed agents because he wants to be famous when he finishes playing. So he's gone with like an entertainment Swann, and they buy bots and all sorts. So I'm not saying he's doing it wrong, but
So 7 out of 10 gives you a decent performance. How did you find it?
I enjoyed that. A little look back. I realised I didn't answer the fella's question about dancing earlier. My worst dance by miles was the cha-cha-cha dressed as Michael Jackson doing the Thriller 2 weeks before that documentary on Michael Jackson came on the BBC. That's the low point of my entire life. I've said it.
Very good answer. Right, a couple more questions and then we're done, I think. I don't know if Annie Chave, we were chatting earlier, Annie, about whether you wanted to ask a question. If you want to, the stage is yours now, briefly, if you're interested. You were going to ask a question about the 100. Maybe you've gone off to...
Hello, I'm here.
You're here. Okay, cool. Have you got a question? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And hello, Graeme.
Me.
It's kind of like a bit of an elephant in the room asking about the 100, but I was interested to hear that you're very much a red ball player and interested in red ball more. So what are your thoughts about the 100 and the possible damage it might do to county cricket?
Well, when I say I'm first and foremost, red ball cricket is my chosen form of the game. Always will be. I do still love T20 cricket, not so much 50 over cricket. Never really got my goat, but 2020 cricket has a place because it's just got such a new audience, and it is a spectacle. The IPL is an incredible tournament. Yep. If the 100 is marketed properly, if they pay people properly, if they get the best players in the world, and they don't try and tread on the toes of county cricket and do it as in a quick blast of a tournament in the middle of the summer, I don't see anything wrong with it. I must admit that.
I see that, but it kind of is treading on the toes of county cricket, isn't it? If it's stuck right in the centre of the season.
Yeah, it is. But county cricket, there's too much of it. All the teams play too much cricket, and it's too convoluted. There should be I think a good thing this year is that it's the 4-day cricket. Because of the 3 division thing, that worked. I don't care what anyone said. That's better than 2 divisions. That really created a lot of interest. I think that's something worth looking at. We don't need a 50 over competition, in my view. I don't think anyone watches it. Anyone's that bothered in it.
2020 cricket just won that. Thank you.
And also, we did win the World Cup in it.
Yes,
we did win the World Cup, but I think it's a dying art. 50 over cricket. I think. If we hadn't won the World Cup, no one would give a monkeys about 50 over cricket in this country. 2020 is the way forward, whether we like it or not, for a whole generation of cricket fans. So whether the 100 will make or break that, or whether it needs to be 100 ball or 20 over, I don't care. If you get the best players in the world playing against each other, you'll have some exciting cricket. And
so you're saying that T20 is the way forward?
See what happens.
So you're saying T20 is the way forward, and red ball cricket is.
No, don't put words in my mouth. So
Okay.
20 is the way forward for this whole generation of cricket fans who've been born into it.
Okay.
But the red ball cricket has to be sacrosanct, in my view. Test cricket is everything for me. They're two different beasts. So let them be separate.
Yeah, I think that's well put.
Yeah, no, that's
fair enough. And I still will take you to 100 game, Annie, by the way. I'm going to stick to that promise. Anyway, look, we better let you go shortly. One more question here. KG Camus says, this is sort of related to punditry, really. While you were doing punditry in the West Indies at the same time as the Ashes 2019, what were some of the conversations on that Ben Stokes performance that were being had by the commentators in Antigua covering the India tour? Anything Sir Viv had to say that you can share on Stokes,
Yes.
etc.?
That was bizarre. So I was out working, I was covering India versus the West Indies, watching that on a laptop during a test match. So test match was going on, and we were looking at the Indian dugout. Virat Kohli and all the Indian team were watching the England game. They weren't watching their own test match, watching that knock. Viv Richards was, honestly, he was licking his lips. He was getting so excited because of the stroke play of Ben Stokes, because of how he was batting. And you know Viv. I mean, we're lucky enough to know Viv. What a hero. Anyone who takes the aggression to the opposition, who sort of stands, pushing their chest out and really goes for it, Viv will love you forever if you do that. He was absolutely purring like a kitten when Ben Stokes was smashing it around. It was amazing to behold.
Great story. Thank you for the question, KG. That was good. Right, so we're done now, except for whoever is going to win this. So this is clearly the picture we've been talking about all evening, really. The sprinkler in Melbourne, and Swanny's going to sign this kindly for us. But somebody has to answer the question to get it, to win it. So using your chat, your fingers on your chat box, your fingers on your buzzers, Swanny's got a question for you. What is it?
I blame one England bowler, fast bowler, for denying me what would have been my only Test 100. And I blame him completely. And yet did nothing to warrant my blame, other than I saw him walking out to bat and thought, he looks like the worst batsman I've ever seen by the way he's walking. Who is that man I'm on about? He walked out to bat looking so bad, I teed off and got myself caught on the boundary for 85. The first person to get that right wins.
Okay. Can you see the answers? We've got okay. So we've got Anderson, Wood, Tremlett, Onions, Broad.
Onions. Who put onions?
Onions. Richard Shelley. He knows his cricket. Richard does. That's the second time he's won this tournament, this competition, I think. So Richard Shelley, well done for getting Graeme Onions. Tell us the story, Swanny.
Centurion Park. I was on about 70. And Jimmy got out. Me and Jimmy had a 100 partnership. I coaxed him into hitting his only ever 6 in Test cricket. Anyway, Jimmy gets out and the number 11 walks out to bat. It's Graeme Onions. I realised at that point I'd never, ever seen him bat in the nets, in a game, anywhere. Such is the way. I just never played against him before. And I watched him walking out to bat and the way his pads were done up and the way he was walking his helmet. And I honestly thought he looks like the worst batsman. He's a walking wicket, this lad. He looks dreadful. And so I teed off. I hit a 4, a 6, and I got caught a deep mid-wicket. And Graeme Onions went on to defend the last 20 balls of the next 2 Test matches to save our skins against Dale Steyn and Morné Morkel. He was brilliant. And I'd thrown away the chance of 100. And so I blame Bunny to this day. But I love Bunny to pieces. And well done, Bunny. If you're watching this, listening, well done on a brilliant career. Even if you did turn up to my wedding in a leather bomber jacket. Unbelievable.
It's great. It's been great stuff, Swanny. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. Very well done on the quiz as well.
7 out of 10. Yeah, it's pretty good. You're up there. With you're on a line with Woody and who else got 7? Someone else, I think, did they? Tuffers. Tuffers and Woody got 7. So you're in reasonable. Actually, you're in jovial company, I suppose, with Woody and Tuffers.
Exactly.
And thanks very much to everyone for
cleverest cricketer I've ever known. He plays the full, but we all know he's bright as a button, really.
Absolutely. And thanks to everyone for joining us as well and asking your questions tonight. Some great questions. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Thanks again to Swanny, and the last word to you, Simon.
Well, the last word to you, Swanny. Have you enjoyed it, and what have you taken out of this? You learned anything?
I'll tell you what I've loved the most. My last word will be this, because it's just been pushed under the door while we were speaking. My kids do this. They push little things under the door, and my youngest has drawn round her hand in pen and written Jess. So that's what I'm taking from this. Jess's high five.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you for your time. Please go and have your dinner or kiss your daughter goodbye tonight or whatever. And all the best with everything. And we'll try and maintain the campaign to get you involved with the England spinners. I think they need it.
Good man.
Cheers. I'm happy for you to disconnect. Everybody else who wants to stay on for the after party, please do so. Swanny, thank you very much. And good night.
And good night, everybody. Thanks very much indeed.
And I want to play the game with you.